it's helpful to make sure that your microphone is on mute unless you're getting ready to speak so that everyone can hear you, but also helps to minimize any distractions associated with any background noise. So first, we're going to go ahead and start with some introductions. So I'm going to do my best to kind of take a look to see who has joined us this morning, and then give each person that is attending an opportunity to introduce themselves, state where they are calling in from, so to speak, what organization they represent, and we'll go from there. So in no particular order, just kind of how I'm seeing the different people on today's call being presented on the screen. I'm going to start with Shaylin Turney. Good morning, Shaylin.
Hi there, it's Shaylin, and I'm from Project Amore, and we work with children with special needs.
Great, thank you so much, Shaylin. I appreciate you joining us today. And then I see Luz Navarrete. Good morning, Luz.
Morning, buenos dias, everyone. Luz Navarrete with Centrain.
Thank you, Luz. Appreciate you. And then I see Steve Nath.
Good morning. My name is Steve Nath. I'm the operations manager for Hope Inc.
Morning, Steve. Thank you for joining us. And then I see Eric Alley, I believe. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm from the Tucson JCC.
Oh, hi. Great to have you. Thank you for joining us today. And then I see Nicholas Trees.
Hi, everybody. Nick Trees, La Frontera, Arizona.
Hi, Nick. Thank you. And then I see Lauren McCullough.
Hello. Hi. Thank you. How is everyone?
Good. Hi, Lauren. If you could just introduce what organization you're representing today.
Sure. Yes, I'm with the City of Tucson. I'm the Transit Services Coordinator. So I've replaced Christopher Blue's position. And then I have a colleague who has replaced James McGinnis, but he just started. So I think he may join future meetings, perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. And then I see Renee Stevens. Good morning, Renee.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
I don't know how to do my video, but anyway, I'm Renee Stevens from the Tucson JCC, and good to be here this morning. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then I see someone who has dialed in, and I don't want to give their number on a public meeting, but I do see someone else who has joined the meeting. So if you could go ahead and introduce yourself, that would be great. And then I'll continue on with other individuals that I see their names actually on the screen. So if you've called in today, but only have your number presented, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself.
Janine, this is Mike with Oro Valley.
Oh, hi, Mike.
Hello.
Morning.
Morning.
Okay, and then I see Irma.
Yes, good morning. This is Irma with
Hi,
Hope
Irma.
Incorporated in Tucson.
Great. Thank you, Irma. Good morning. And then I see Sergio Centeno. Good morning, Sergio.
Good morning.
And Sergio, if you could just remind everyone what organization you're representing today.
Yes, good morning. My name is Sergio Centeno, and I'm with Intermountain Centers in Tucson.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then anyone else that I may have accidentally overlooked that's joining the call today?
Hello, Janine.
Yes, good morning.
This is Teron Lawrence with Intermountain Centers as well with Sergio Centeno.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you joining today. All right, I think that's everyone. If I haven't overlooked anyone, so I apologize. If there's anyone else that's joined the call just now and I haven't given you an opportunity to introduce yourself, please let me know. All right, we're going to go ahead and move forward beyond introductions to the next item on the agenda. So with that being said, we're going to just do a helpful reminder about in-kind reporting. So with our regional planning efforts, they're obviously enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and any participants. And so we being PAG, we collect the data on the time dedicated to these meetings and any activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. So if you as a participant today are paid with federal dollars, please let us know now so that we do not include you in our collection efforts for that. So time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff, who are of course knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. And at the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. And then of course, time spent working on PAG or RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. So just a helpful reminder on that. So again, if you or your position rather is paid with federal dollars, please let us know so we don't include that in our in-kind reporting. All right, so we're going to go ahead. Right.
This is when I say that I am funded on federal dollars.
Correct.
Yes, then yes, you should write my name down as funded by federal dollars.
Okay, and then I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Oh, this is Lauren speaking.
Lauren, okay, I thought so. I thought I recognized your voice, but I just, I wanted to make sure. I just didn't see it quick enough on the screen. I apologize.
No worries, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lauren. Anyone else? Okay, great.
Hey,
We're gonna.
Amy. Hi, sorry, Luz with Suntran. I just wanted to note that Steve Spade is in my office with me right now, so he is also on and listening.
Okay, great. Hi, Steve. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Sorry, I couldn't get, I could hear you on my computer, but I somehow couldn't get connected, so.
That's all right. We're flexible. So great to have you. Thank you for joining us this morning. So we're going to go ahead and move past in-kind reporting, and I'll circle back if needed, if anyone else needs to share that their position is paid through federal dollars so we can calculate it correctly for in-kind. All right, so the next item or on the agenda is advancing regional coordination. And so with that, on today's agenda, I'm not really seeing the agenda on our screen, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull it up on a separate screen here. But on our efforts to advance regional coordination, I believe one of the bullet points is with regard to removing barriers to coordination. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to hide myself for a second while I pull up the screen so you're not seeing me turn my head to the left and the right because it could be distracting. So for advancing regional coordination, like I said, one of the bullet points on the agenda is removing barriers. So I would like to kind of start with that particular element, and then we will kind of move down the associated bullet points such as coordination with paratransit, et cetera. So as a good place to start in opening up the floor for discussion, just to give some context here, I'd like for all the folks on the call today just to give some thought to what you have reviewed on our coordination plan with our specific goals and strategies that are in alignment with advancing regional coordination and what the associated priorities for those are. And then start to begin to kind of unpack what you see as potential barriers for advancing that level of coordination. And so if you remember in the coordinated plan, when we talk about associated priorities and strategies within it, there is an emphasis on for both rural and urbanized areas to coordinate with paratransit, of course, expanding service hours and the days that service is provided. And then, of course, coordination amongst 5310 subrecipients, specifically nonprofits. And then there's some other elements as well, which we will kind of talk through a little bit more as the agenda for today's meeting unfolds. So with that, if we could try to begin to share what we believe might be some of the barriers to advancing coordination. And I don't like to kind of plant seeds. But if I need to at least give some like memory joggers or what have you for things that could potentially be barriers, I will share that. But for right now, I would like to just kind of keep it neutral and open and ask you as attendees what you see as potential barriers to advancing coordination in our region, if any. So I'm just going to kind of open up the floor to that and allow people to share their thoughts at this time. So maybe a different word for barriers might be just like some general concerns that you as an organization might have or be wrestling with as you think about, what are the ways that we can coordinate either with other agencies or meaning other nonprofits or such as public transit in the paratransit space. What are some concerns that you might have in order to be successful in coordination efforts? I'll just kind of open the floor there.
A few words, Janine, if that's okay.
What's that?
Steve was gonna say a few things.
Oh yeah, go for it, Lucy.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to, we've got this mobility management grant. And one of our interests is in looking at ways that we can coordinate. Maybe I could stir the pot kind of with our philosophy on how we all work together as transit providers in this county. First of all, we're serving people either accessing us through the public systems like we are here at Suntran and Oro Valley, and then we've got a lot of private nonprofit providers that provide services specific to their clients. But we're all trying to provide mobility to people that have some kind of issues or challenges. And I think the reason we wanted to take a look at mobility management here is we know that we all have limited resources, either in operating our budgets or in accessing funding to buy new vehicles, especially now since the price of vehicles is probably going to be up 40% this year. And so our question is, what can we do as providers to start to work together to improve service to our customers and potentially operate more efficiently and effectively and ultimately give people more flexibility. So we've been active thus far in trying to look at things like, do you have clients or customers that you're working with that might need access to the fixed route system? If so, we have teams that can provide training, on how to access the system. So we'll train people on how to use the fixed route system, or potentially can train caseworkers or other professionals within agencies. There are other things that we can do and we'd like to see where other areas we could benefit. So we worked with Sun Shuttle last year when they were short-staffed and tried to look at ways we could pick up some of their passengers and blend them in with ours, where we're picking up a similar origins and destinations. And so part of our question is, are there things that we can do in our efforts that make your job easier, or improve the skill levels of your people, or start to give people greater mobility? So that's kind of our goal, and we've been trying to work with other agencies. I think we've reached out to some and tried to expand on the inventory that Janine's put together to get a sense of what you do, who you serve, how many you serve, and then how your services either relate to the fixed route system or how we can work our demand response systems together better. So that's really our goal, is to start establishing those relationships that can start to improve mobility for folks. That and looking at our obligations with as receiving federal funds is to do some kind of, is to look at coordination. So what can we do that starts to check that box that we're starting to look at ways we can work better together?
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate you sharing that. So I'm going to open up the floor to those here on the call today to kind of share what they have for thoughts and questions to Steve and Luz. Any ideas on what things could add value to the efforts to advance coordination in our region, specifically to what Steve and Luz had shared?
So Janine, the other question is, and yeah, I'd like to get discussions rolling, so maybe to take another approach. Is the feeling of the group's providers here that we just want to do our own thing and be left alone?
That's how I'm told to operate, just because of insurance requirements and liability reasons. But this group is invaluable about reaching out and letting us know about other organizations' needs when it comes to transportation or vehicle needs. And that's a big help. I'd say my biggest barrier right now is just obtaining vehicles in this current market. As my fleet continues to age, it's becoming quite cost prohibitive to replace these aging vehicles. And aside from that, you know, I know that there's the 5310 program to help us secure these vehicles. But I found that the application process is far beyond what I'm capable of doing myself. And I don't have anyone over here to help me. So I think that would be my biggest barrier to expanding La Frontera, La Paloma, and Cebus transportation services within the community right now.
So do you have vehicles now?
Yeah, I do. I do have about a half a dozen UDOT vehicles. Some of them, one of them, I should be specified, is won't even pass a UDOT inspection due to the lift being inspected that year of manufacture didn't come with a specific safety requirement, and it's not able to be retrofitted. And we don't have the funds right now to replace the vehicle or replace the lift. But yeah, we have a handy van, a bunch of 15 and 12 passenger vans, and a couple minivans that were provided.
Okay.
Nicholas, are you guys like fully doing transportation, or do you feel you guys aren't like really able to keep up with the demands?
Right now, yeah, we are starting to fall a little behind, especially on the La Paloma side. Trying to walk into a dealership and pay $60,000 for a minivan right now is ridiculous. And hopefully this microprocessor issue will get figured out. I worry that, you know, dealerships are going to start limiting supply so that they can keep their prices up. But, you know, even prices on lightly used vans, you know, you're still looking at $40,000 for replacement. So yeah, we're struggling a little bit.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate you sharing. I was just curious how many other organizations are facing similar challenges to what Nick had expressed, whether it be you know, vehicle shortages or just meeting the demands of your clients' needs. Anyone else willing to share in that space?
Hi, this is Carmen from Catholic Community Services.
Hi, Carmen.
Hi, how are you? We have a significant vehicle shortage. We support, several group homes and independent apartment programs. We also have programs, vocational programs. We're trying to get people to work and to go out job searching. And it's, our vehicles are very old and we are having lift issues as well. Now, taking them in, they seem to just, they're falling off quickly. So it is challenging. We would love to be able to help other people in the community with transportation. And, when we have a full running fleet, we have been able to do that in the past. And it's just super challenging to get our own folks anywhere they need to be on time, let alone help another organization or people in the community. But it all comes down to money. Like we did have to buy a new van for a program, and it's unbelievable how much used vehicles are costing, and repairs are also up to a point that we have to really go back and look at our budget in order to approve repairs. So it's a big challenge.
And how many vehicles do you guys have, Carmen? Do you know that number?
For our program, we currently have, for residential, we currently have 6 that
And
are
they're vans, not cutaways, right?
Pardon me?
They're vans.
They're vans.
They're vans.
Yeah. And I think I don't want to speak for Jessica's program. I know that they have a few. But those, we have the 6 that we're able to use, but they are hanging on by a thread. One for Jessica's program and one for, I should say the vocational program, and one for residential were granted a few years ago, and those are still in, great. So we have 2 awesome vehicles, and then we have 5 that are white knuckling life on the road.
So your vehicles you purchased privately, they're not 53 through the.
No, I'm talking about the 5310. We do have one that we had to purchase privately because we lost so many 5310s due to illness or age.
Yeah.
So the number that I gave you was the 5310 number.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. I appreciate it. Carmen, I'm going to still let you speak if you still had others to share. I just wanted to make sure Mike Alexander from Town of Oro Valley saw that I see his hand up to share something. So
Yes. So our problem is that we are very busy. And when we first bought our minivans, that was something that we could do. There's no big deal. We could use them along with our cutaways. Now, because we're so busy and the minivans are a little more restrictive as far as people that use wheelchairs, we need cutaways. So I just got off the phone this morning with our director, and she's authorized us to go ahead. And I've talked to Janine before. If we can sell or even swap a minivan for a cutaway. So that's been authorized. So I've got all the information put together. I've got to report that to ADOT. But I'm just throwing that out there that we're going to have 1 or 2 minivans. And they are 2017s, less than 50,000 miles. I think one of them the most has 47,000 miles on it. So we can sell those to another 5310. Hopefully, I mean, the best idea would be they have a cutaway, 14 passenger cutaway that we can sell, swap, however ADOT deems that to happen.
Michael, this is Nick Trees at La Frontera. I unfortunately don't have a cutaway to swap with you, but when it comes time for the bidding process, I'd love to have a shot at some of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I don't know how ADOT's gonna do that, but however they do it, I know we have, we need cutaways, we don't need minivans.
Thank you, Mike.
Uh-huh.
And then Carmen, I see your hand still up, but I wasn't sure if that's a new ad or if it's just up still from before. So I just want to make sure I see.
I'm lowering it. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I didn't want to be rude and make you feel like I was ignoring you.
No.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
good.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else would like to add to the conversation?
Janine, this is Teron Lawrence with Intermountain.
Hi, Teron.
I just kind of want to piggyback on the repair issues. We're finding ourselves in the same position with some of the 5310 vehicles that we're spending a lot on repairs to be able to have them pass the inspection. So that's just been kind of a challenge for us with some of the programs, just trying to keep those vehicles up to, good working order, and to be able to keep providing the use that we need for our programs.
Thank you.
I'm curious because I feel like the general consensus from everyone is that you're all having like vehicle issues and it's all really expensive to replace vehicles and to get them repaired. So is nobody having like manpower issues? Is everybody okay? Like you guys have like the drivers to meet demands? It's all just about the vehicles?
Correct.
Okay.
For Oro Valley, we still need drivers because we're doing probably 35-40% more now than we did before COVID. If they start charging, maybe that'll come down, charging the fares. Maybe that'll come down a little bit, but right now we're very busy. We have more drivers and more vehicles now than we've ever had. So we need we need drivers, but yeah, we need to kind of swap our vehicles to more cutaways versus the minivans as well.
Okay, thank you.
So on the some of the feedback for repairs and shortage of vehicles and even shortage of drivers in the coordinated plan, some of the strategies that are referenced does speak to different types of coordination efforts to include things around vehicle sharing and then also different support efforts, if you will, around preventive maintenance. So I'm just going to kind of throw it out there to the group in terms of what do you see as any potential opportunities to share or coordinate vehicles. So for example, purposes only, let's say you identify that between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. you have a couple vehicles that really aren't as utilized as they are in different times of the day. If there's an opportunity to in terms of sharing that vehicle with another agency who could really benefit from using that vehicle during that interval of time to be able to serve clients, and kind of what your general thoughts are about those types of coordination efforts.
This is Mike with the Oro Valley. I think you're going to run into insurance issues by swapping vehicles.
Yeah.
I think that's your biggest hurdle right there. Especially on ours, it's got Oro Valley Sun Shuttle all over it. So if it's being used by somebody else and somebody else happens to get in an issue, well, then we're liable as well.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, our insurance requires review of motor vehicle records for each employee on the road, road tests for anyone's authorized to drive, plus the addition of our specific training and whatnot. And aside from the liability aspect, there's no way to insure other people's drivers have completed this to our standards at their company to be able to satisfy insurance requirements.
So Janine, this is Steve again.
Hi, Steve.
So let me, and I hate to tell long stories, but
You're okay.
I've been involved in service coordination both in North Carolina and Iowa. And so, I mean, I know there's a lot of issues and a lot of challenges, but there are also a lot of tools and things we use if we identify barriers. So for instance, I heard Carmen talking about wanting to get people into the community and do things. You know, obviously we can go into Catholic Charities or any organization and start to train people on how they can use the fixed route system to access services. But we can, you know, other places we've kind of gone beyond that. We've done things like share clients. So if you carry people that have similar needs, we can look at how can you share clients. You can operate your own vehicle, but maybe you, on your way to dialysis, you pick up somebody going to a day program. The important thing there is that we would provide consistent training for anybody that participates so that all of the operators have the same training that's required by our insurance companies. You know, other places we've negotiated with people that do vehicle repairs to get best prices, and then we could go to them as a group instead of trying to find, you know, your own repair unit. In Iowa, we had an insurance consortium where we actually got together as different organizations and purchased similar insurance under the same umbrella so that we resolved the insurance issue. And I'm not suggesting all these as things that ought to happen here, but if we can, the goal, I think, is to start taking a look at what your particular needs are and what we can do to help each other. So if we need to look at ways to give Carmen's people better access to the fixed route system, or if we're developing on-demand services within neighborhoods that might serve an agency, we ought to take a look at how those things match up with what your needs are. That's kind of low-hanging fruit, but if you get into some of these bigger issues, there may be ways to make some progress. Because at the end of the day, we're not, even if we get more money, if the price of vehicles has gone up 40% and the cost of mechanics has gone up and the cost of employees has gone up, we've got to be a lot smarter with our resources and work together so that we can serve more people.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate you sharing that. I see that Gerard, I think it's Gerard, I apologize if I'm saying the name incorrectly, is hands up. But before I call on Gerard, I just wanted to see if anyone had any specific feedback with regard to, you know, support around kind of like a standardization of driver training or support. And then, of course, the elements with regard to that on-demand service, if you will, level support to serve more people, or even the sharing of non-client groups, if you will, right? Like you're picking up clients from another organization on your way to serve your own internal clients. So I'm going to ask Gerard to go ahead and share what was on top of mind, and then I'll open up the group for other comments related to what Steve had shared. So Gerard, go ahead.
What I have is our vehicle is, we have the cutaways here, but we don't have, we have a limited supply, but we do have one. We have it in Phoenix at Maricopa, but they don't let us bring it back to Pima County. Is there a way we could get that vehicle? Because it's not being used up there. It's just sitting. I would want to know if there is a way that we could bring that from Maricopa to Pima County and then use it.
Gerard, can you remind me what organization you're?
You're the Beacon Group?
Speaking group. Okay, sorry,
Yes.
I apologize.
I'm sorry
Um,
about that. Yeah.
No, you're okay. I think your mic cut out a couple
Yeah.
times, so I missed a few words. So I apologize if you were saying it during then. So that's something I could definitely ask ADOT about in terms of what's the guidelines and the approach for something like that, and if there is some flexibility in that. That's definitely an ADOT question that I'm happy to kind of facilitate on your behalf, so to speak, or with your help. So offline, we could talk about those particulars and make sure that we're asking the right questions. That's
Okay.
definitely something we can ask ADOT for sure.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
No problem. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor. I see Crystal, you're with your hand raised, and I know you're supporting us with screens, etc. So I'm not sure if. Okay, my mistake there. All right, anyone else that has some feedback or comments based on what Steve had shared a moment ago?
Janine, this is Mike Neal with Oro Valley.
Sure.
I think if we had some kind of universal scheduling tool where we could, each agency can see where our riders are going. So if someone has a particular issue in an area, they have riders going, they can, share or ask the other agency to, hey, can you pick up this person or these people and take them where you're going already? I think that would help. That's going to take a like RTA or somebody that has some kind of scheduling program to be able to do that. I'm sure everybody has to pay a license fee or whatever to get to tap into that, but still that would be, I think, a benefit. You could see each other's rides, so you can just say, hey, these guys are going to the same place, pick them all up.
Hey, Janine, just to respond to Mike, I mean, that's a really a great suggestion. One of the things that we did with Sun Shuttle was we took their the trips from several of their clients and put them in our system to see where they'd match up. And to be able to do that with an Oro Valley or a Catholic Charities would be a great idea if we could figure out a way so we can drop them in our trapeze program. There's also a provider we used out of Great Britain called Immense that would simulate trips for us. They would take our trips and say our Sun Shuttle's trips and simulate them together and see if there's a way you could match them up better. But we could accomplish a lot by just looking at where we're duplicating service.
Okay, so just real quick before I call on Nicholas, and I thought I saw Carmen's hand up as well. Before I call on Nicholas and then Carmen, because I believe that's how I saw the order of hands. If I'm wrong, I'm going to ask for some grace on that. But I will call on Nicholas and then I will call on Carmen. But before I do that, I was just curious how many different organizations might be interested in participating in a separate meeting outside of this call to dig a little bit deeper into the suggestion that was initially announced through Mike from Town of Oro Valley, but with Steve's support about different tools that might already exist to start examining things a little bit closer with regard to where we're perhaps duplicating efforts, but also where there's a need. So if as we follow up after Nicholas and Carmen's thoughts, if I could get kind of an idea of who'd like to be in that discussion, I can make some notes and send out invites accordingly. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Nick to go ahead and share, and then Carmen.
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested in participating in a group planning like that. I think for our restraints, we are kind of confined by HIPAA. Being a behavioral health organization, if we pick up one of our members and pick up someone on the way, we're automatically disclosing that that person has a mental illness by riding next to them in the car. So it'd be tough for us. I would love to participate in it just to see the progress and see if it is something in some way that we can participate in. But what I was gonna add originally was, we have, over 50 vehicles here in town. And I've negotiated long and hard with our repair vendor to get, discounted prices on labor and parts, just due to the sheer value and volume of our old cars that need repaired. If anybody would like help contacting the fleet manager for my repair vendor, I can help facilitate that. Get some protected prices on vehicles, as well as towing. I get really cheap towing, Lacey's Towing, if anyone's interested in that.
Okay, thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. So I have written down a little bit about what you shared about anyone interested with regard to a good contact for repair vendor and towing and the fleet manager. So I can definitely share that with the group in a separate follow-up email and try to help people who are interested get plugged into that. So I appreciate you sharing that. And then I think I saw Carmen's hand, of course, and then I thought I saw Steve Nath's hand up from Hope. So I'm going to call on Carmen, then I will call on Steve, and then I will circle back to ask who would like to also be a part of the conversation around taking a look on how we might identify scheduling tools, et cetera. So I'm going to go ahead and allow Carmen for.
I was going to suggest something similar to Michael, that if we have a calendar with availability or, something to show blocks of time when agencies or providers are available to do an unscheduled transportation. So if somebody had, a doctor's appointment or whatever it was that's out of the ordinary, morning or afternoon transportation, they could look at a calendar and see that, Catholic Community Services may have availability between 10 and 2 on Wednesdays. That might be helpful for folks, at least the people that we've been able to assist, because we usually assist people who are elderly and they don't have regular or routine transportation needs. They have sporadic needs, and it's very difficult to schedule. I've heard that people and they can't afford Uber or taxi service. Also, a lot of the Ubers can't accommodate the special needs, but I think it was Nicholas who mentioned we would have to do it outside of our normal transportation times because of HIPAA and because many of the folks we support with transportation do have special or specific needs that would not allow for strangers to ride with them. But outside of that, we may have some opportunity to assist people in the community.
Thank you, Carmen. All right, and then I thought I saw Steve Nath hand up a moment ago. Steve, did you have your hand up, or was eyes deceiving me?
Pretty much everybody addressed. My biggest concern would be we're on demand and it's clients only. So I have huge red flags for HIPAA concerns and stuff like that when we're mixing folks, and they'd have to figure out a way around that before we could even entertain a system like that. It just, as a behavioral health agency, our first duty is to protect our members' anonymity and right to privacy, and you can't do that if you're mixing and matching folks and throwing people's names out there in a huge public system. So they'd have to address that before we can even entertain something like that.
And I gotta believe it's something that we can deal with. I've been in systems where we carry people from multiple agencies, and there's certain information we need to know, and certain information we don't. So I think just getting some advice, we can probably work through some of that.
Okay, thank you, Steve. So I'm going to call on Mike Alexander from Town of Oro Valley here in just a moment. But again, I think it'd be really important for anyone who's interested or has feedback regarding some of these efforts to share, because if you can bring to the table, any concerns or thoughts you have around it, it allows us to do our due diligence and be really intentional with our time and saying, okay, what are the things we need to take a closer look at, examine, where have we seen other agencies be successful in this space and what can we learn from it? But if we don't have those thoughts or insights shared at the table, then it makes it, perhaps harder for us to take that closer look in a meaningful way. So I would encourage you to be a part of that conversation, even if like right now in this moment, you don't see it as something that you could potentially move forward with, but have insights and wisdom that I think are valuable to the conversation. So again, when I send out an email asking for folks to say whether or not they'd like to be a part of that conversation, I'd like to encourage each of you to think about ways that you can contribute to that conversation, even if right now you don't see your organization being able to be a participant just yet. So I'm gonna leave that at that for right now. And then I'm gonna move to Michael Alexander from Town of Oro Valley.
To answer the questions for HIPAA, we get the information from the disability office as far as who is disabled or under the ADA eligibility. From there, all we get is, do they need to lift? Do they have a wheelchair, a walker? And that's it. We don't care what their disability is. It doesn't matter.
Right.
On the drivers, at the end of each person's name, all it has is an A for ADA or S for senior. That's all they have. And then, within the information it has, they need to use the lift or they have a wheelchair. And that's just for space constraints or timing constraints to produce the schedule. So that kind of answers your questions. It doesn't matter what type of disability someone might have, because nobody knows. And frankly, nobody needs to know. So it's like, okay, there's this rider we're picking up going from point A to point B. That's it.
Thank you, Mike. I think it might have been Steve or someone else had shared a concern about HIPAA privacy, and I'll let that person kind of rephrase it so I'm not messing it up. But my perception was that, let's say, a seat is open to me to go to a mental health appointment, and then so I'm going, and then by proxy, another person who was already in the van also gets off, then by extension, I'm aware that another individual was going to a mental health appointment. And I don't know if that's kind of an example of a concern about HIPAA privacy or not, but that's kind of what I was visualizing a little bit when someone was sharing about additional concerns about HIPAA. So I don't want to mischaracterize anything. So I'm going to kind of circle back to see what was any other concerns about HIPAA or privacy that we would need to be just as part of this conversation.
If you are riding a Suntran bus or other public transport and you get dropped off at Hope and everybody sees you get off, and that's fine because it's your choosing to do it. But we as an organization do not have the right to put you in a situation where your privacy about whether you go to Hope is put out there. It's not we're not allowed to do that. I mean, it's a law. So it's a huge difference between you riding on the Suntran bus and going to Hope and getting off and people seeing that's your choice. We have no control over it. You do have control over what information is out there, but we can't do that and put you in a position where your information is put out there because that's against the HIPAA rules. So, and I would love to see us, and we've talked about this. We've done a lot of work with other agencies where we'll loan them a vehicle. That has become harder to do with insurance and stuff like that. Or we'll go do a pro bono pickup or something like that. But I think if you guys figure out how to do it, that's great, because there's always going to be need for more transportation. I just think we have to be really careful about how we do that.
Thank you, Steve. And then I see Nicholas's hand up again. So I'm going to go ahead and reach out to Nick.
Yeah, I raised my hand to say exactly what Steve just did. It's different from someone signing up, you know, on a public service to be transported somewhere, but us, you know, involuntarily picking up someone along the way would not be allowable and would be a disclosure. So yeah, what Steve said.
Okay, thank you, Nick. I appreciate that.
That I
Great.
couldn't remember disclosure. That was escaping me. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you. And then I see Mitch Eskriff from Beacon Group. Go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, thanks, Janine. Yeah, I'm also kind of in that same boat of just, it would be really challenging for Beacon Group to do this. I also believe we have some federal contracts. You know, we serve people with disabilities, so we probably have contracts through the Division of Developmental Disabilities that would probably prevent us from offering rides to non-members while we are receiving reimbursements for providing services to the members we do have. So I think even stepping aside from the HIPAA requirements, we would probably have challenges just by our contracts that we have providing services.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Any other thoughts or comments regarding what we've been talking about so far?
Well, this is Steve again, just one comment. I know there are a lot of questions and a lot of issues, and these are a lot of really good points. I know they've been resolved other places. And so I think if folks want to try to work something out, you know, you raise these questions and you take a look at what your contract does say and what our responsibilities are, and then how the other agencies fluctuate, you know, deal with these things too. So I think there may be ways to work through some of it. There may not, and there may be ways that, or there may be some things you can't resolve. But if there's an interest in doing some of these things, then it makes sense to, you know, to at least ask the question, and then we can say, yep, we can check that box that it's a yes or a no and move on. So, I mean, for folks that are interested, we could take a look at doing whatever we can do to share. It's like Mike said, we carry people from different organizations today with different issues, with different kinds of disabilities, and we're able to do it okay. So I think there's got to be a way to solve some of this for people that, you know, want to take a look at it.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I think there's an opportunity for us to come to the table and talk through it. I think what I'm hearing from different people is kind of the line in the sand that says, if I, as an individual, request transportation somewhere through public transportation services, perhaps a different posture than if a specific organization is being very forthcoming with someone's information and sharing that they're going to a particular place, and how do we navigate that and make sure and agencies are still in compliance with HIPAA. So I think for those agencies that have a heart for seeing how there's an opportunity to coordinate, but this is kind of their initial concern, and would like to bring those to the table and talk through it and see what solutions have been put in place in other states or other regions, I think that would be a good use of time. So again, you know, for agencies that have a heart for it, want to take a closer look, but right now they're just being honest with some of their concerns. I'd welcome you to come to the table with those concerns, and let's talk through them and see what solutions have been put into practice in other states or other areas in general, and see how we could put some of those into implementation here in our region so we could serve more people. So I will be sending out an email to see how many people would like to be a part of that conversation, and then we can figure out a good date and time to do that. So I want to make sure that we're mindful of the time that we have allotted for our meeting, because we still have another agenda item, but I also don't want to rush this particular one. So I'm going to try and find a good balance on that. So just like to see what other concerns or challenges people are facing, but also be focused on, potential solutions. So we've heard some good ideas or thoughts about how we could be smart about reducing maintenance costs, et cetera. And so we had an open kind of invitation to good points of contacts for that. But I know there might be other solutions. I know one of the things that we've also talked about is just the inherent costs of, maintenance in general. But if you're in a very rural area, how do you get a broken down vehicle to a place that can get repaired? So that kind of ties into the towing, but different like mobile repair options, or even share costs with regard to maintaining specific vehicles. So if we're all maintaining perhaps, similar vehicles for similar reasons, whether it be lift maintenance or something else, how can we come together to kind of help drive down those costs? Because much like Steve said, even if there's more funding available, if the costs are for either purchasing or maintaining a vehicle are also escalating at a high rate, potentially, there's still less money potentially to go around. So we need to be good stewards of what we have and see what opportunities there are to do more, arguably with less. So things should we be mindful of or bring into the discussion of advancing coordination in our region? So I know I've heard a little bit about like insurance and liability. We talked a little bit about state contracts or any kind of regulatory practices to include like HIPAA. We talked a little bit about just costs and funding very loosely. We did take a look at scheduling. I think Mike had brought that up and Steve had commented. So we're going to have perhaps a separate discussion about that, depending on the level of interest, to see what we can examine there. We did talk very loosely about like potentially, I don't want to say conflicting service areas, but taking a look at where there is an overlap or perhaps even a gap, identify some opportunities. So I think that was part of the other discussion within that. I know we mentioned a calendar about, unscheduled trips, which obviously service areas would be another part of that conversation. And then we talked about clients. We all have served different clients. Some people are more focused on elderly or disabled populations, whether that be a physical disability, but others are focused on individuals with developmental disabilities. And so there's some elements of consideration there. But then tying back to vehicles, equipment, right? Some passengers do require the need for a lift, but also on the vehicle space, some agencies require a certain number of wheelchair securements that could be different than other agencies. So being cognizant of those pieces, but then other types of equipment such as, scheduling tools, et cetera. So as we look to not just barriers, but also potential solutions, what are some other things that might be of value to bring into the conversation?
This is Mike with Oro Valley. I think one of us in here also brought up the driver training.
Driver training.
Yeah, just to make sure that, when you're handing off somebody to driver from company X, they're going to bring them home safely.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. So I'd like to kind of open the floor a little bit to the driver training piece, because I think Steve and Luz can speak to things that they can bring to the table into that particular area. So I think, standardization, if you will, of driver training can be something that we can look at so that people can have some confidence. To Mike's point, that if we were to share trips of any kind, or even share drivers, if you want to look at it that way, regardless of what agency you represent, you can have confidence that your clients would be having drivers that could support them at the same standard of care, if you want to call it that. And so what does that look like? I know there are some agencies that their driver assessments that they do and the frequency in which they do them looks very different than other organizations. So, and then there's others that they might have really great practices, but their staffing doesn't necessarily allow for them to share those kind of practices in the way that some of the larger organizations can. So how can we make the most of what we do have, right? So everyone might have a best practice, some might have additional staffing. So what does that look like to help us perhaps standardize or level the playing field on driver training practices? So Steve and Luz, if you wanted to share what you might be able to bring to the table or into that conversation, I'll let you share that, but opening up the floor to any thoughts or considerations around arguably like a standardization of driver training.
So one thing that we've found other places, particularly working with private nonprofits, is that some agencies would hire people specifically to drive, but some agencies might use somebody whose primary function was something else, like maybe providing staffing at a group home or something like that. And that so the folks, you might have checked their driving records and everything's okay, but they might not have had defensive driving training or training on the proper way to secure mobility devices. And one of the things that we found is that with transit personnel, and I'm sure Mike's got this in Morro Valley and we've got it here, we've got people that specifically do training. And we have specific training programs for, defense driving, securing real smart devices, providing proper customer assistance, that whether your people are full-time operators or they were doing different things, they would all have the same level of basic training, whether you were cooperating or not, or coordinating or not. It would at least be, you've got this standard of expertise that you can expect from your people so your service is consistent. And I don't know how y'all are staffed, but that's the kind of thing we ran into in other places.
Anyone have any thoughts or considerations they'd like to bring into the conversation around that? Well, let me ask a different question. For those of you that have some driver training practices that you're really proud of, or driver assessments or accident prevention, anything in that area, anyone have anything they'd like to share or about that, or a willingness to perhaps share those practices as we look at opportunities to kind of standardize driver training, if that's the direction the group would like to move towards?
Janine, it's Nick.
Okay, Nick, hi, go ahead.
Yeah, we have a really comprehensive driver's manual that's been developed and updated year after year, specific to what we require and expect of our drivers. And, we kind of use best practices, and we are a CARF accredited organization, and they always do an in-depth review of our drivers programs and make recommendations, which we include. So it's standard driving procedures, defensive driving, emergency weather, how to handle emergencies. It's even, all of our drivers have to be trained in CPR and first aid and have some out of office safety training and whatnot. And that's all included in the manual. So if anyone wants to have a look at that, see if there's anything that they would want to include and standardize.
Nick, I think we lost you for a few seconds there. At least my audio cut out. I'm not sure if everyone else could hear the last part, but It sounded like you had a manual that you were open to sharing with the group if they were interested. I think-
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm not sure if I missed anything else towards the end there that you had shared after about sharing the manual.
No, I don't think so. And I have a
Okay.
pretty comprehensive road test. Takes their.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Anyone else from another organization have anything they'd like to share about their best practices with driver training or things that they'd be curious if other agencies are looking at or doing? Mike, I know you have an accident prevention, if I'm not mistaken, and then I think Hope has a their own model of like a driver assessment that they do, if I'm not mistaken. And then I don't see someone from Savvy, but I know Savvy has some very specific elements that they've included in their driver training to meet the needs of those with visual impairments as riders. Mitchell, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say is I can't speak too much to the driver training at Beacon Group, but one thing I know we do and that we're really good at is providing first aid training. You know, all of our drivers are typically job coaches as well, so they work with the people we serve and are usually taking them to job sites to work. And so, you know, they're trained in care for people with disabilities as well as like first aid. And I also know that, you know, our organization does a really good job at maintaining first aid kits in every vehicle and fire extinguishers in every vehicle. You know, I get emails, I think once or twice a month that says to check the first aid kits, to check the fire extinguishers, make sure that everything is up to date and up to code with those two elements. I know that, well, I can't speak to the training that the people we have driving are very well trained in caring for the individuals we serve, and that the vehicles are well stocked with anything that's needed for care.
Thank you, Mitchell. I appreciate that. And I took some notes there of what you'd shared, so thank you. Steve, Nath, I think I saw your hand up.
We have a pretty extensive training regimen when folks come on board. We use a Relias, but we also do an in-person training. So they go through several online trainings, including you know, what to do in case of an accident, how to handle things, severe weather training and things like that, and what to do. For those of you that don't know, when monsoon weather comes on, KVO A4 has a beautiful picture of a white van in the middle of a wash. And if you look really closely, it has a Hope sign on it. So we're really careful now to make sure we teach people how to drive appropriately in all weather situations. And then we do a physical hands-on training where we show them how to do a walkthrough of the vehicle. We show them how to do our paperwork. We show them how to transport a wheelchair properly and make sure that it's securely, it's safely secured within the vehicle and stuff like that. So it's pretty extensive. And then Irma and I do refreshers with all the sites annually just to make sure that everybody, because if you don't use it, you lose it. And we want to make sure that everybody keeps our members in as safe a situation as possible by keeping our vehicles in good working order and safe.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share or contribute to dialogue around driver training, best practices, and perhaps standardization to some of the elements that Steve and Luz had shared? Is that something we would like to kind of, dare I say, create a separate group? Because I don't want it to sound like a separate group, but like another meeting, like we have the one for the scheduling, perhaps like another separate meeting with regard to driver training. If there's people that have an interest in that, that's something I can help to facilitate a meeting around. I want to value everyone's time. So if there's not enough interest in that, then I don't want to try to reinvent the wheel for nothing. But If there's an interest and people want to take a closer look at this, and we think it would be of value, then I want to be intentional about that and see how we can.
Are there people who, I mean, we've heard several who have some pretty strong training. Are there folks that feel like their training may be lacking and they'd like to take advantage of some of these things?
Right.
This is Carmen, and I do think that a standardized training would be really beneficial. You know, we had a very strong training program, and then that person left the agency. So if we had something that was standardized across all agencies, that would be beneficial. I've worked at different places, and I know that and I'm air quoting, you can't see me, but the standardized training that people use, you know, we all know that it has to be a first aid kit and a fire extinguisher. But beyond that, their road test is different. Their requirements are different. So something standardized would help me a great deal.
Okay. Thank you, Carmen. And I see Mitchell and Steve's hands still raised, and I'm not sure if that's a new ask or if it's just up from before. So I just want to be respectful of that. And same with Carmen. I'm assuming your hand's just not down just yet, or maybe you still have more to share. So, okay, great. I just want to make sure I don't want to put people off on accident, but making them think I'm ignoring them. All right. Anyone else that would like to add to that conversation in terms of how they find it of value to look at this further, the driver training standardization? I see Gerard's hand up. Gerard, go ahead.
At the Beacon Group, yeah, we would really be helpful if we did have standardization training. I know we have, our training is like at a minimal. It is kind of lax in some area. We do, like Mitch was saying, fire extinguishers, first aid kits are all very, very well kept up, but our driver training is need of, a lot of help in that area. As far as the standardization, that would be very helpful to us.
Okay. All right. Steve, I'm not going to try to put you on the spot, but I just wanted to kind of circle back with you and see if there's anything else that you'd like to add now that we kind of have a sense of, you know, feedback and thoughts in terms of
Which Steve?
Oh, there are two, right? Steve Spade. How about that? And then of course Steve Knapp too, if you had something. But
so no, I think our only point is if there are things we can do to work better together to improve service to our customers and to operate more cost effectively, then, you know, we're certainly willing to get involved however we can. And I know there are others too. And I think the training is a great example that, you know, we've probably got lots of examples of people that have really strong training programs. And
right.
You know, what other things can we tick off that would help, whether it's repairs or procurement or sharing rides or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, we're just happy to get engaged and work with folks.
So the last thing that I'll bring up into the conversation, because I think it still fits within this area, but it also perhaps creates a good segue for our next item on the agenda. And I know we talked about, you know, staffing, if you will, like, is there a shortage of drivers? Or are we good with that? And then we've also kind of had a conversation about, you know, the sharing of trips. But there are people, much like I think it was Catholic Community Service, are times when people who are not necessarily their clients are able to be supported by another agency such as Catholic Community Services, or they look into being able to be served through public transit. Well, sometimes, whatever reason, people can kind of be in the gap. So they can identify a fixed route service that they could potentially use to get from point A to point B, but for whatever reason, whether it be, you know, they don't quite feel super steady on their feet, and so, but yet their mobility challenges aren't in the space where they would qualify for paratransit, or perhaps, you know, some people who have either some kind of cognitive decline or have experienced some kind of trauma where they're a little bit concerned they might get confused, either signaling for the driver to stop at their stop or just navigating the trip in general, that if they had some additional support, meaning a kind of an advocate that would ride with them, whether it be a volunteer, an agency staff member, friend, family member, et cetera, that they might be able to be more successful in taking advantage of different transportation resources, whether it be through another nonprofit or public transit. And so in that space, I was curious as to what people have as thoughts about looking at opportunities to support people that might be in that gap, so they can take advantage of whether it be public transit or an extension of a ride through a nonprofit taking on a non-client rider, assuming they're able to do something like that. Any thoughts on that?
So I get the sense that talking about what we can do to maybe provide some opportunities or some resources to people to beef up training sounds like some low-hanging fruit, maybe taking a look at some opportunities to do some consistent scheduling makes sense. Some of those other items, maybe, as we maybe have success in some areas, we can start to open up some of those other avenues of conversation too.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Steve. Well, if no one has anything else to add to the conversation for this particular item on the agenda, I'm going to go ahead and kind of move on to the next item on the agenda, but I will use my notes to guide me on what invitations, if you will, for the different conversations we need to circle back around. So the next item on the agenda is about mobility training and travel training. And so I'm going to go ahead and not share my video so that I can navigate a few screens here. So on the agenda for mobility training and travel training, I just wanted to have a bigger discussion about the current regional training, and we talked a little bit about some of the things that connect to this in terms of mobility training, the supporting riders, et cetera, but also having a bigger discussion about what do we see about anticipating future needs, like what's on the horizon, what are some trends that we might be seeing so that we can be proactive in thought. The quality of services training and mobility training is a lot of the other types of training that we see unfold. Some of it is in the driver training space, whether it be accident prevention or PASS training, et cetera. But it's also how do we educate the individuals of your organization about resources and tools that are available to your clients? How do we educate the actual riders themselves and or their family members or advocates? And then who else, would be best served by being aware of different types of mobility training, but it also lends itself also to that standardizing, the quality of care, back to that driver training standardization. And then just having a discussion about what kind of support is needed within your own organizations, very internally, as we look at mobility training or travel training. And then what are some of the external supports that you see you need to make this a go, right? Or what are some of the external supports that you see needing to be part of the conversation to make what we currently have in place stronger? Or some of the things that we see on the horizon, who do we need to kind of include in the conversation so that we can really anticipate those needs well? So I'm just going to open up the floor and maybe just start with the first bullet point, which is current regional training. And I'll defer a little bit to Luz and Steve to kind of share things that they're working on and have in place currently with regard to travel training or mobility training. and then maybe even for them to share a little bit about what they see as things for in the future. And of course, we'll open up to the floor for thoughts and suggestions. So I don't want to put Steve or Luz on the spot. We could definitely take the thoughts and.
Yeah, well, we lost Steve, so he's out.
Okay. All right. So we'll defer to you, Luz.
Yeah, we held him down as much as we could. But yeah, so I think we've talked about our mobility training quite a bit in the past. And we, offer mobility training for all of our services, whether we're doing something out in Marana or Sahuarita or here with our SunTran services. Something that was kind of coming to mind, and Janine and I have spoken to this before, is also thinking about if you are someone really well-centered, like if you have a well-centered location and there is a lot of bus options, and maybe the issue is that, yeah, you don't have like the best vehicle to take someone somewhere. What if those people that, were driving the vehicle can maybe be more of a transit advocate, or can help maybe guide a group of people via bus to where they need to go? And maybe that's something that we can start thinking about, how to use our manpower maybe a little differently, and maybe creating some kind of like transit, ambassadors or people that can help other riders that may not have all the cognitive skills to be able to use the bus on their own. Maybe we have somebody or a group of people that can help them maybe do that ride with them. And, they're using our bus. So our fixed route SunTran, it's going to be going there anyway. So it's there for anyone to use. And then you're also saving on your vehicle and wear and tear that you put on your vehicle. So that's a thought that I think it was really the Catholic services I was thinking of when we were Carmen was talking about like group home, trying to like kind of shuttle people from place to place, that maybe that could be something that would work for them or any other organization. But again, with mobility training, we do offer just a lot of different trainings on SunTran, SunLink, SunShuttle, anything really to help people ride our services.
Thank you, Luz. Anyone else have anything to share based on what Luz has shared? I thought I saw someone's hand up. I thought it was Steve or Nicholas. Nick, was it you that you had your hand up?
It was me. Yeah. I think at the last meeting we discussed this, and I had asked if you guys had any, I see frequent mailings from you guys around all the planning and meetings and whatnot, but I don't know agency-wide for my case managers or the recovery techs who would actually go out in the community with our members and help with this training. I don't know that they necessarily have a lot of access or exposure to any of the services that you guys offer in terms of mobility training. So if you guys do have anything that you can send me that I can, share out with the clinical teams to let them know what resources are available through y'all, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
Anyone else have a similar request or need like what Nicholas had shared? Or an idea that kind of came to mind as a result of what Nick had shared to share with Luz? Okay, all right. What else should we add to the conversation with regard to anticipating, future needs, whether it be for your internal staff or even externally, like people that you coordinate with or work with on a regular basis to make sure everybody's kind of on the same page with things? I know from different conversations with different organizations that support seniors and or disabled populations or people with disabilities, rather, that, like say, for example, someone with like Parkinson's, right, with a movement disorder or something along the lines of Parkinson's, they can have challenges, you know, getting into an Uber or a Lyft. But maybe at the stage of their movement disorder diagnosis, they're not necessarily eligible for paratransit. So I think what Luz was sharing about, you know, like a travel advocate or a transit ambassador, just someone having just that extra layer of support can make a big difference for someone to be able to gain access to transportation services, regardless of, you know, what the need is, medical appointment, shopping, you know, a mental health appointment, just access to different community services or resources such as like the food bank, et cetera. So back to, I think Luz had shared about, you know, how do we use the time, talent, you know, that we have from staff, et cetera, to be able to serve more people. If that's something we could take a closer look at, thoughts about taking a closer look at, I'd welcome that into the discussion. But to Nick's point about making sure like case managers or like recovery techs, and perhaps there's other examples of that, of how they can be educated about different types of services or how to access those services. If there's things that come to mind, let's make sure we bring those into the conversation. So I'm going to open up the floor to that. Okay, so let me ask a different question. Like, what kind of support are you seeing that we're doing really well in this space? And what are some things that you feel like we might need in the future? We don't necessarily have a huge need for it today, but you could see kind of the writing on the wall, if you will, like this is something that we should be thinking about now so we can kind of get ahead of it. Or just things that you have seen within your own level of expertise and the clients that you serve, but you're wondering if other people are experiencing something similar, even if they serve a different audience. So we can add those elements into the conversation. So I'm just going to open up the floor for that.
Janine, are you still there? Did you mute?
Oh, I apologize. I think I was talking into mute. So I think the only one that heard me was my IT team. That's a little embarrassing. Okay, so let's try that again. So I thought I saw Nicholas Trees' hand up a moment ago. So I'm gonna call back on Nick, if that's true that you had your hand up.
I did, and then I had to take a phone call. My apologies.
Okay.
I got kind of distracted there. No, I think one thing we're doing really well is just this group is great at sharing needs. You know, especially when we were discussing the vehicles and whatnot, but and I guess this is more of a criticism for ADOT rather than, PAG, but, even internally, I've been able to identify needs, through our different organizations under the La Frontera umbrella, and it's just really impossible, to move these vehicles around to where they're most needed, or they can, best serve a population or a community. So I think it's great that we're able to discuss, possibly, buying or moving cars around, but at the same time, I haven't been able to successfully do one in that manner yet.
Thank you, Nick. And I did make note of that. I think I noted it earlier about seeing what the opportunity is to move a vehicle or facilitate the help of moving a vehicle for another agency. So I will definitely make a note of that and begin to ask ADOT some good questions about how can we make the process easier, if that's what it is, a process issue, or if there is a some guidance or a regulatory type of element that is the barrier to that, so that we at least have a better understanding of the why. And then if we need to work with the FTA for an exception or something like that, then we can at least have the conversation to see if that's even possible. But I think it's a good question to defer to ADOT on, to see what we can do, especially in a time where there's supply chain challenges, and then obviously costs are high on vehicles as a whole. So how can we do well with what we have, right? Stewards of those resources within our state. So I will definitely ask ADOT for some support on that. So tying back to the question that we were trying to uncover a little bit more fully when I was so eloquently talking into mute, is what are some things that you're seeing as opportunities, to get ahead of, or be proactive around in terms of future mobility training or travel training needs, whether it be that education piece, if you will, for your case managers or your recovery techs or any other internal or external partner that you might be working with. What are some of the things that you can see potentially being a need in the future, even if it's not a need right now? But also, let's celebrate things that are going really well right now in that space, and what do we want to see continue, but also in the things that we see that are doing really well, that's an opportunity to kind of perhaps fine tune it or add another nuance into it to strengthen it. So I'm going to try to open that up again, but also I wanted to allow Luz an opportunity to just share her thoughts about things that she'd like some general feedback on around travel training or mobility training, or any things that they're thinking about for in the future and would welcome some thoughts around. I don't want to put words in her mouth, so I'm going to just leave it very open-ended for Luz to be able to ask any questions that she might have or share what she might have in that space. But before I call on Luz, I just wanted to open up the floor again to see what thoughts you have about planning for the future, or celebrating what's going on well right now in the travel training space and mobility training.
Good. All right, thanks, Janine. So I think having Steve on was really helpful. He just helped us kind of talk about maybe where we see the program going. So it was great to hear everybody's thoughts of how we could possibly even begin having the conversation about coordinating with each other. But as far as mobility training, like we said before, it's kind of the same things that we've been kind of pushing about. Just if you guys need us, we'll be happy to come out there and work with you all. I definitely hear you on getting more materials for your case managers, and I will begin working on that so that we can have some different materials for everybody to have among your staff. But other than that, I think we're just really open to connecting with everyone and hosting different classes. And of course, I think we've talked a lot about how we're able to really focus in on the client's needs and help make sure that our mobility trainings are serving your clients. So if you guys are ever at that case where you are interested in having training for your clients and looking at, the fixed route training or any type of service that we offer, we're happy to come out. So just reach out to us. We're happy to work with you any way we can.
And then Luz, just to give you a quick plug here, there might be some people on this call today that haven't historically been on the call, just whether they're new to the program or new to their organization or new in their role, and they might not be quite as familiar with some of the things that you champion. If you could just give a kind of a quick snapshot of some of those things, so that that might spur some thoughts of reasons for them to connect with you that they might not have been more aware of.
Sure. Yeah. So our travel training consists of a very thorough look at our transportation system, our public transportation system, and what it has to offer. So I'm going to use Beacon as an example. We worked with Beacon several times throughout the year. And what we do is we go to a facility and we work with certain group members. Sometimes it's like 20, sometimes it's 10, depending on the group. And we look at, where they're at, where they're going. They have to get to Beacon, and how we can work on getting them there through our, Suntran. Because a lot of what we would try to do is kind of not make people so reliant on our paratransit service, our door-to-door Sunvan service. And we're really hoping to get people to use the Suntran fixed route service as well. So at Beacon, we went out there, we had a whole classroom session where we have like workbooks, and we look at the Suntran map, and we look at routes, and we have them put their home address and put places they want to go, and we look at the different routes that are available. So that's like step one, is an in-classroom session. And then step two is that we bring out an actual Suntran bus and we go on a route. And again, depending on who we're teaching, what the group is, Beacon was a lot of like young, I would say 18 to maybe 30-year-olds that were there. And we had them do a game while we were on the bus, because we like to push that people need to be aware of their surroundings. A lot of times people will get on the bus and they kind of forget where they're at, and they're not paying attention to what the stop they need to get off at. So we play like bus bingo, which is just a bingo card filled with landmarks that you'll find throughout your bus route. And it's just a way for them to stay connected the whole time while we're on that bus route, and they're actually looking out their window and they're paying attention to the roads that's coming up, and they know what bus stop we have to get off at. So we do that on the bus, as well as talk about different features that the bus has, how to, pull the little ringer, buzz the ringer to initial your stop, the bus numbers, how to call customer service if something happens. If you leave something on the bus, make sure you know your bus number. So we really try to get that hands-on experience with them as well. So that's, one training that we do with those buses. We also have done different trainings for like Project Amore on the streetcar, where we have their clients come out and we get on the streetcar and we do the whole loop, and we talk about different stops and different things along the area. And this isn't anything new. We've been doing travel training for a long time. We're just trying to push it in different ways and really connect with different nonprofits to see how we can further offer our services to their clients as well. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Luz. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you sharing some different perspectives, because I know you shared, you also work with Project More, and they serve a different audience or clients than perhaps like Beacon Group or even Catholic Community Services. So I think it's good for people to understand that you reach and your ability to support agencies that serve a broad range of clients is definitely at the forefront. So If you ever have any questions about how, Susan and her team can support you, I encourage you to reach out to her. And if you have any ideas or thoughts about ways to strengthen it, I encourage you to share that as well. I know that they value your input and engagement around how we can support people in our region. So don't be a stranger in that front. But just want to open up the floor one more time for any other thoughts or questions that people might have based on what Lou shared. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next item on the agenda. See if we can get the next item on the agenda visible on the screen. There we go. So if we could just move to the next item. And so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's meeting. If there's any other final questions or comments, I'll open up the floor now. Otherwise, I'm just going to call the meeting to adjournment. And I would just want to say I appreciate every one of you for investing so much time today. And I appreciate everyone's willingness to have a great conversation about all the different topics on today's agenda. So thanks for your time. Thanks for all you do in service of others. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Do as
you.
Bye,
well.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.